So just sitting forwards for a few moments and to see how this feels in your back, but elsewhere in your body. So back in particular, I think we want to just watch a little bit with trying to maintain this posture. We don't want to sort of like find ourselves straining to be in it. So a little bit of your weight forwards, just a sense of allowing your weight to drop down, feeling the support through your legs and through your back, but not gripping tightly. And as always, when you need to sit back, then do that. Take a couple of slow, gentle breaths. Start to rub your hands together. Tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder, your arm. The other side. Upper part of the chest. Your belly. And finally your legs. Sit it back. Feel your weight drop into the chair. Feeling the points of contact in your back, lower back, hips, buttocks. Depends on just how you're fitting into the chair. And just bring your attention to those areas with the intent to get that feeling of opening, like releasing. Just feel that in doing so, you've kind of opened up like a kind of drainage hole almost, so that tightness in your ribs and shoulders, your belly has a way out, has somewhere to go. It's that feeling quite heavy in the chair. And these sessions, and really any time that we do Tai Chi, the initial few minutes are really just bringing into place the things that we need, as though you're going to go out shopping and you're just making sure, yeah, you know, you got your keys, your purse, your bag, whatever, everything there ready for you. And at the same time, the thing that is less obvious, I think, but really very, very important is this method, this process of bringing our attention back into our body, if only for a few moments. Sometimes it feels as though our thoughts land and then take off again. I describe it sometimes as like watching bees on a flower, on a bunch of flowers. They sort of land and then they never quite stay still. Just focusing on those moments when they do land, and then coming back to the upright position, whatever way is comfortable for you. And go through the same process again. So this thing of the sort of, you know, the quick check-in, if you like, with your posture, maybe your breathing, and in particular this feeling of your weight sinking, whether it be sinking back or in this case sinking down. just becomes a kind of habitual pattern. And so that 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 landing, those moments when our thoughts settle, become a little bit spotlighted. And then turning your head. So we want that process to become habitual. And what one way you can do that with all of these exercises is at the point of change, and in one direction and in the other direction, and there's just that little punctuation mark, like a comma in a sentence on each side. You won't get it every time, but gradually you'll come to associate that with this process of settling in mind and body. And then your shoulders, going forwards. When your elbows drop down, can you just for a moment get that sense of the weight of your arms? Hands down to your sides, rotating your arms. And then winding around. And back the other way. And resting your hands. Easing forwards. Pushing back. Again, when you come to the upright position, just that little gap there. And quite commonly in Tai Chi practice, we we're told to hold postures. You go into a certain position and you stay there basically. I think in many ways it's the wrong way of putting it. I think a better way of thinking of it sometimes is not that you have to hold the posture, but rather the other way around, that you are held by the posture. And so perhaps not when you're further forwards here, but when you come to that point, just a sense of, again, that releasing, letting go feeling. Now, if perchance it doesn't work, if you do that and you suddenly feel yourself go offline, don't panic about that. It's there's always trial and error here, and just bear in mind that when we make a mistake, when something goes wrong, that can be as informative as getting it right. can be quite useful to make mistakes. We're allowed to make these mistakes. You're not going to get it right every time. Turn a little. And then in the other direction. And around. Back the other way. You pass through this upright position. And again, that comma, that slight pause. And from that position, perhaps with a slight shift of your weight, stepping out, plant the foot down and then just press in gently. So don't be in a hurry to bring the foot back. Heel, toes, press gently and then draw back. Good. And then on the other side. And give yourself a moment to settle back into this posture. Arms hang down, again, feel the weight of your arms, and then bird folds its wings. One more time. Changing now to fisherman castanet. So it would be wrong to suggest that nothing happens in those moments of punctuation. But for instance, if I show you from the side here, I'm clearly moving. My arm is coming through. My weight settles, so my weight just seeps down through my foot. And this is just sort of hangs there for a moment. But I'm beginning to go back. So now my elbow drops down and then suddenly the momentum picks up. The same thing here. There's just a slight movement and then it comes through. I'm exaggerating now. It's barely noticeable, but what it gives to the movement one of the things that it gives to the movement is this less hurried feel. It's very easy to get into a mentality that I've got to do this. And we find ourselves, we start to, oh, that's nice. And then 2 minutes later, we're back into hurrying mode. Perhaps hurrying is the wrong word. Rushing, perhaps is a better term. Not to say we should never go fast. Obviously, sometimes we do need to, but it's the mentality that goes with it. Seeking the stillness within the mood. Rolling the ball in. And pigeon spreads its wings. If we focus on these points of change and that punctuation, then gradually the feel of that integrates more and more with the rest of the movement. Hence the phrase, the stillness within the movement. The reason for putting the emphasis on it is because we easily miss it. We actually consciously cultivate that. It's one of the ingredients of Tai Chi, but one that's very easily missed because we tend to focus on the movement because that's what we see. And then pushing wave. Another advantage of this is, and it does not apply quite so much to these sort of classes, these sort of the seated exercise or standing exercise classes. You see significance more in if you're trying to do a sequence. But quite often those points of transition are the ones where we sort of miss details. We kind of we almost panic about it. And so a good response to that sort of anxiety and that sort of I'm not sure what's going on in the first instance is to really get into the habit of cultivating that slight moment of stillness. One more time. and then punch with both fists. There's a great benefit to that, I think, because we gradually learn not to be overwhelmed by a kind of anxious adrenaline type response. Those kind of responses, I mean, the far end of the scale would be, you know, there's a lot of talk these days about the people recovering from trauma. An extreme, well, one aspect of it is that it's an extreme overstimulation of the adrenal response and subsequent effect that has on the nervous system. But you don't have to have had a kind of obviously traumatic event to experience that sort of thing. It's a question of degree, really. And then winding your hands out. It also gives us a chance to develop this much more intentional quality. The movements aren't random movements. In some cases, they can be spontaneous movements, but they're not random movements. One more time. And then polishing the table. Once more. And then pushing up, expanding and contracting. You could think of expanding from the ground. So your feet, you feel your feet pushing down, and that might be a deliberate, conscious thing. Going to push down the feet and then your hips. It might just be that the feeling of your weight dropping eventually produces a response in that lower part of your body. And then the third stage, if you like, is to feel that it's here in the belly, lower back, like a ball being pressed down, and then released, feeling the expansion downwards and upwards. Wild goose. and then parting the clouds. A dragon plucks the stars from the sky. Just notice at the top of the movement here, as you do this winding movement, whether the position of your arm and your hand is comfortable. What we're looking for here is a position where the weight of the arm goes down through the body. On the side, what you should see is that my arm is in front of the body. Bear in mind, we often have a tendency to do that, to pull the arm back. So that's one thing to consider. So push your arm up, and rather than bringing it straight down, just rest there for a moment. See if you can relax the shoulder, and then let the weight of your elbow pull the hand down. On the other side, remember what I said about not straining to hold the posture, but rather finding a way to let the structure of your body hold your arm in position, just for a moment. And then notice the pull through there that begins to contract, and it's that contraction that pulls your elbow down. Now moving into pushing in two directions, but actually just doing the first movement for a moment. So from here, push up, and again, just rest there for a moment. And then coming down. So you want your hands a little bit in front. There's no good having your hands here because now they're being pulled forwards, but you don't want them here either. So just a little in front of the body. Again, feeling the movement really down through your back more than anywhere else. Not tight in your chest. Then add in the sideways movement. And once you start to get a sense of what you're looking for, and the next bit is trickier because you go out to the sides. And again, you just rest for a moment. Can you get the same kind of feeling coming in along your arms and into your shoulders and down through your back? And again, your hands are slightly in front of your body. So when I push my arm out, it's here. So my little finger kind of in line with my ear, or maybe a little bit in front. I can't see because every time I turn my head, but that's the line. Not that, but that. And it's similar, but not quite the same feeling of extension through the side of your body. And again, we're not going to continue resting in that posture the whole time. Just try and have a sense of where it is now. You want your intent to guide your hands to. Again, you won't get it every time. Extend one foot, knees soft. Even trickier, really, as we come back. So we're beginning to realize that the possibility that in almost any position, we can maintain that sense of being held by our structure, being held by our movement, being held by the energy moving through the body. But of course, there are some movements where it's going to be more difficult than others. And then hands loosely fisted and grasping the tiger's ears. And then the other side. And then hands fisted. One more time. Okay. Just sitting for a moment with that same intent. If we can find a position for our arms, then maybe we can find a position for our back as well. We can find a position for our back, maybe like the weight of our head, our hips on our knees, and so on and so forth. The principle is always the same. And then just rubbing your hands together, tapping over your face. over your head and neck, and onto one shoulder, your arm, on the other side, upper part of your chest. Your belly, and your legs. Chin your heels up. And then winding around. Back the other way. Good. And you stand. One very practical outcome of that thing about positioning our arms is that a very common, pretty much everyday action is to one reason or another lift our hands up, maybe getting something off a shelf or putting something on the shelf, getting out of a cupboard, hanging up washing, all sorts of things. And what we often do, and it's a strange habit, but we often, we're stretched up, we start doing this, we start leaning back. And it's really kind of quite dangerous. You could hurt yourself, but of course you could also fall. So if we get into a habit of recognizing this position, and if our intent puts our hands there, that becomes a natural thing for us. I'm not claiming, by the way, that this would make it safe to reach up above your head. We know that there are always risks, but it does actually make it safer, shall we say. If you have to do it. But there's always, in sort of warehouses and things like that, you're actually not supposed to lift anything above your head, even light weights. But in our daily lives, we do that. You reach up to get something, and quite often it's like, oh, you pulled a muscle or something like that. So we become familiar not just with the actual, oh, this is where my hand should be, but with the feeling, and we start to come into those positions much more naturally and intuitively. It applies to the whole body, of course. So what I was just sort of getting you to do by holding your arms up there was really kind of the equivalent in some ways of this exercise where we rock our weight forwards and backwards and find that position of equilibrium. So just sinking down a little, bring your hands around and push up. And as always in Tai Chi, what we do is we look for these ideas to take some kind of effect, to get some kind of physical response in as simple a way as possible. And once we've established that it is possible and how it feels and what's involved in it, that's when we start to apply it to other movements, other exercises, and other positions. One of the reasons I always start with this particular movement is because hands are inside the shoulders, and you're much more likely to get a sense for the feel, the quality of movement in your arms and your hands, a sense of connection down through your body here than with some other movements. The next one, the wild goose, so making the change now to the wild goose, is significantly more difficult because your arms are going away from your body. But now we have an idea of this is how it could feel. And then parting the clouds. Same idea again. So those feelings start to be part of what guides our intent. Like if you ride a bike, for instance, you know how the bike should feel. So you kind of know if you're leaning over too far without having to, oh, I'm leaning over, I need to do this. You just begin to automatically make those corrections. One more time. And just have a go at the standing version of Dragon plucks the stars from the sky. See if you can reproduce that feeling. You might find it easier on one side than another. Maybe just getting a glimpse of the possibility of that. Fine. One more time. And check out. 1 foot forwards, transferring your weight. Resting just for a moment on each foot. It's again using that time, not a cessation of movement. I tend to think of it as a change of direction. I'm going forwards, and as I settle, I'm going down. I feel that sense of dropping through my body. I go back. Now, it doesn't, as I've said before, necessarily mean that your hips are going down more, your knees are bending more. It could be, and most likely would be, I get to hear maybe, oh, I'm holding in this back hip a little bit. I look for that feeling of release and so on and so forth. So we bring our awareness to the movement. And then raising toes and heel, front foot turned out slightly. Notice whether you're hanging over, make the correction. Again, like riding a bike, driving a car, even walking along the road. We rarely travel in a dead straight line for very long. We veer off, even if there's nothing in the way, we kind of veer off and then we make the adjustment back and so on and so forth. So there may be slight things go out and then we just make the adjustment. Same thing when we do the stepping. The other side. Raising toes and heel. And stepping in. And take a few steps forwards. Change direction. In a few moments, we'll be doing Wind Blows the Willows. And again, what we want to be able to do is to bring our arms to that position without having to think too closely about it. So, again, a sense of rightness, if you like, starts to develop. Once you know what you're looking for, we're beginning with Fisherman Cast a Net. And forwards, turning, okay. Left foot forwards, Fisherman Cast a Net. And then next time you go forwards, turning, and then going into Dragonfly Skims the water. So you come into the appropriate leg. You bring the foot in and you turn and just put the toes down and rest in this position for a moment. Then take the step. Same thing again. Bring the foot in, put the toes down, and just check your posture. And then step. Same thing. Change in direction. And then same thing again, but this time a little bit more flowing, passing through that point as much as you can. I mean, obviously, if you're feeling wobbly, you put the toes down. But, oops. And that's what you learn to do. That wasn't deliberate, I'm afraid. There's a little bit of an adjustment I needed to make. Same would apply to the way we raise the leg, of course, as applies with the arms. More difficult again. And bringing your feet parallel. Go back to your chairs. In a lot of cases, it's hard to describe exactly how it's being done. I'm beginning to notice that sometimes I would ask a question to my teacher and I'd say, "How are you doing that?" And they'd go, "I don't really know." And it's quite strange that you develop this intuitive quality. Sometimes you can analyze it, but it isn't necessarily all the same. And sometimes I've been trying to do a movement like this. I think, oh, that's what I need to do. So I do that next time, and it doesn't work. It's quite strange. And going back to the bikes, I mean, if you've ever tried to teach somebody to ride a bike, it's like somebody in my martial arts class was saying that they weren't very good at cycling. They weren't too sure about turning. And on the way home from that class, I started to think about how I turn on a bike. I nearly fell off my bike. I went to turn right, and I was thinking, yeah, I need to do. Oops, hold on a second. Don't think about it. In the end, when I was chatting to them again, I explained it to them that it's a bit like I described throwing a particular punch, which is something that they did very, very well. And it was like so, but you can't say exactly what's going on. There is this area that I would define as intuitive, where body and mind and body, however you think about it, very much overlap. So in a way, in those moments of punctuation where we're maintaining a position rather than moving through it, that's what we're bringing in to the picture there. Um, again, this is where it becomes very useful because, of course, we don't walk down the road doing dragon plucks the stars from the sky. We do all sorts of things, but the principle and the intent and the kind of background awareness are very much there working for you in everyday situations. And this is very common, I think, in arts like this, that we get given systems. This is what you do, this is how you do it. And what they actually do is they bring body and mind together. And then you kind of go beyond that a little bit in a way. Oh, no, I'm not taking those off. I don't need to take those off. So embrace tiger, return to mountain. One more time. And rest. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.